Moments before honesty pierced Princess Gaia's illusion through the heart, part of the fog made a decision. It had been searching for Diamond Tiara all this time, crawling across all Equestria, reaching into every mind it touched for information. Yet impossibly, it came up short. It was out of options. If Mama Princess Gaia couldn't find her, perhaps her actual mother could. It reached into the well of bad thoughts and feelings at the core of its being, and plucked at Filthy Rich's grief and stubbornness, ensuring it had the right name and room number. Then a single golden bird emerged from the fog, and made for the mental ward. Golden Tiara was watching through her barred window with a wistful expression on her face when the bird landed next to her hoof. She looked at it expectantly, as if waiting for it to sing. There was no need for her song. Not this time. Golden Tiara, I need your help. The mare startled. Whoa, birdies can talk now? A few days ago, your child, Diamond Tiara, went missing. My friends and I have been trying to find her, but even now my song can't reach her. I'm afraid something terrible has happened, and even with all the power in the universe, I may never find her. But you can. Golden Tiara's madness glazed eyes widened. The fog wasn't confident in its ability to cure her illness, but it could feel the mare's intense love for her child. All the fog needed to do was give her direction and purpose. Do you truly, sincerely love your daughter? Of course! Would you do anything to help her, to protect her, even if it meant putting yourself in danger? Anything for my little princess. The body of the fog swelled behind its voice. Then accept my gift and become my knight, Golden Tiara. And find your daughter. The fog poured its essence into Golden Tiara's body, forming platinum armor around her chest and hooves, materializing a pair of shining gossamer wings on her back. And it seeped into her mind, filling the broken cracks in her psyche, quieting the thoughts rattling around her mind. She was not sane. She may never be. But for this, it was enough. The fog watched the mare pry the door open and race out of the hospital, through the field, into the woods. And as it returned to its master, to the fight brewing in the old castle, it prayed. Good luck, Golden Tiara. So you are Twilight's trickster magician, saved from herself as part of her mission, Zecora said, glancing over the unicorn. The one and only Trixie, she said coolly. She wasn't sure what to think about the idea of being Twilight's. Behind the group, Angel was carrying a cart full of all the knickknacks and not completely ruined furniture Fluttershy had brought with her to the castle. Not having access to magical construct laborers made the transportation process just a bit more difficult, but Angel had volunteered, even insisted that he carry the small part of his master's burdens, loyal to the end. Rainbow Dash? Asked Fluttershy in her typical meek voice, peeking out from behind her bangs shyly. Yeah? Back there, you really remembered what I said about pulling out thorns all this time? Rainbow Dash snorted. Well, duh. I may not be the smartest, but I do remember when my smart friends had to help me stuff. Usually. The group paused when they reached Fluttershy's miniature theme park, seeing Fluttershy's wistful expression. She gazed sadly at the half-finished buildings and the now lifeless puppets. Rainbow Dash wasn't sure if that made them more or less creepy. There was, of course, no sign of Gladstone, just a fallen hammer next to a set of unused nails. Fluttershy frowned at the empty spot. This'll never be finished now, will it? Twilight Sparkle shook her head. This'll just be a memory soon. The Everfree will reclaim this place in no time, like nature always does. Good riddance, Rainbow Dash muttered, though she clamped her hose over her mouth when she caught Pinky and Fluttershy's faces. She rushed to change the subject. Anyway, Shy, don't worry about anything you said while we were fighting. We all know it was the black magic and torture thingy talking. Fluttershy shook her head. No, I meant every word of what I said. That was all me. And that makes you a much braver pony than most. A lesser pony would have accepted that excuse, rang out the royal Canterlot voice. All 7 ponies, the zebra and the rabbit, were shaken when a black storm cloud twisted above the clearing, covering the sky. A wind funnel emerged from it, only barely not knocking the ponies off their hooves. The unfinished building swayed. Angel clung to his wagon for dear life. The dark cone touched the ground, then dispersed. Black clouds vanished. Before them stood the Princess of Dreams and Nightmares herself, flanked on either side by Batwing and Pengasi in dark armor, standing as still as statues. It took approximately 3 seconds for every living creature present to prostrate themselves before her, including Trixie, whose ego was no match for the sheer terror of meeting the Night Goddess, and Twilight, who didn't want to risk any disrespect if her princess was as rightfully furious as she suspected. We do not mind your having used our own castle, the princess commented, with lips twitching in something like amusement. But you could have at least asked permission first. Fluttershy wilted. We apologize for not being here sooner, Princess Gaia. We were delayed by the need to find assistance in a most important matter. Elsewhere, a quartet of unarmored day guards looked sheepishly between the night guard hog-tied to the ceiling and the one squashed beneath the weight of 4 former fools wanting to play horsey. The night guard at the bottom of the pile planted his face to the floor. His night suit would pay for this. It seems we had misplaced a small trinket of ours from before our banishment. We are afraid it slipped our mind before now to retrieve it, given we were recovering from our banishment and thought it well protected. One would think leaving it in a ruined castle in the middle of a forest of death, under the flagstones of our old closet, protected by an alicorn seal, would be enough to keep it out of any wrongdoer's hooves. And yet... Fluttershy wilted further. Just 10 minutes earlier, the pair of night guards had watched the princess lift the bloody wooden horn from the ground. They could almost swear they felt it shudder at her presence. "Didst thou endeavour to hide from thy creator after her return?" Luna cooed. "Naughty little thing. If I had known thou wouldst be this much trouble, I never would have created thee. Now come, let us figure out what to do with thee." She reapplied the cloaking spell and slid the old horn under her wing. She also noted the trace of a curse cast long ago, and wondered that those foals hadn't broken it yet. Perhaps she should have included a way to break it from the outside as well as in. But alas, what is done cannot be undone, even for a goddess such as she. The guards said nothing, even to each other. They knew better than to speak of what they witnessed in their princess's presence. "Ah, but where are our manners?" Luna looked to the zebra with a smile. "Greetings, young zebra. Zecora, yes? The mare who was shunned by Ponyville for her unusual appearance, yet panicked and fled from her royal presence like all the others for the same reason." Zecora flinched in shame. "And who is this new face?" Luna glanced at Trixie, then blinked in surprise and looked closer. The one and only Trixie, your highness. The greatest show pony in the land." Trixie clung to her stage persona for all it was worth. This was her first time meeting royalty, and she was not screwing it up. Luna smiled oddly and looked back at Twilight. "Why didst thou not inform our sister that thou had found another one?" No pony except Trixie knew what she was talking about. "Doctor-patient confidentiality, Luna," Twilight said, barely remembering to drop the honorific as Luna had asked on Nightmare Night. We see. We shalt leave thou to inform thy friends in thine own time, though we do not advise thee to wait long, lest it causes confusion at the most critical of times." Twilight and Trixie exchanged looks that nobody else dared decipher. "Now, back to the matter at hoof, Princess Gaia." "Please don't punish her!" Pinky leapt to stare down the goddess of the night. "It's her fault for not seeing it sooner!" Ramadash's loyalty finally overrode her fear as she placed herself between the princess and her friend. Trixie and Zecora seemed torn, watching the two warily. Angel abandoned his oversized load and scrambled out of Fluttershy's head, glaring at the night goddess with all the might of a mad bunny rabbit. "She wasn't evil, just unwell! Charlie, you know how that is, your highness," Rarity joined in. Applejack and Twilight flanked Fluttershy's sides. Luna raised an eyebrow. "We are not here to harm Princess Gaia for her actions upon Equestria or its people in any shape or form." Fluttershy was completely shocked. Sounds fell out of her mouth without intention or form. Luna sighed, teleported past the ponies guarding her, and before anyone could react, touched her horn to Fluttershy's head. The world around Fluttershy turned grey and still. From her own motionless body stepped Princess Luna in all her midnight splendor. "Worry not, thou art not experiencing a relapse. I have merely made it so we may speak swiftly and privately. Do not think this a favour. The headache thou wilt experience in the morn shalt makest thou wish I had simply runneth thee over with mine horn. There is a reason we rarely make use of this spell. Thou mayst end the spell thyself at any time with ease, but for now I believe we should speak in private, Princess Gaia." Okay. How do you know everything that happened?" "The horn told me." "Oh. I truly do appreciate you bringing the wretched thing to my attention." "You're, welcome? It just started calling to me after I came to the castle with the ponies from Sunnytown to clean things up. Please don't be too upset with it. I was already lost in the darkness when I found it." Luna smiled wryly. A word of advice from someone who's been there. "Accept what thou hast done as thy own choices, as thou hast done. Accept that thou art loved and forgiven. And move on. Thou wilt save thyself a lot of trouble." "Oh, thank you, Princess Luna. I am pleased to see thou hast stopped fainting at the mere sight of me. Perhaps it is the other self within thee who is strengthening thy nerve this time?" What other self?" "Oh, do not try to hide her from me. The horn cares not for lingering loyalties. There is little thou hast experienced that it is not already shared." There was a grumbling sigh, then the second Fluttershy stepped out of her body, one with a messily chopped mane and a darker coat. She glared up at Luna. "I am no one's other anything, your knightiness. I'm the only me there is." "Ah, there thou art. I will admit, I had sensed thee upon Nightmare Night, but without my sister's affinity for the lights of life, I had merely assumed Fluttershy to be pregnant. 'Tis lovely to meet thee at last, Fluttercruel." Likewise." Princess Luna turned to gaze at the monochrome buildings behind them, expression forlorn. "My sister once tried creating a place similar to thine, Princess Gaia. 'Twas granted the survivors of the last great Kittypox outbreak, a town full of ponies who wanted for nothing, who knew not of struggle, and therefore never found any greater purpose. It did not work out. I will admit, that paradise was much closer to solving those flaws than my sister's, or even the world that preceded this one. Tis a shame, truly. I'm going to find a way to save them. Thou art wasting thy time, Princess Gaia. If they have learned nothing in 1,000 years, they are beyond salvation. Fluttershy's voice barely wavered. Even without my power, they were still willing to pledge their love and loyalty to me. I won't abandon them, with or without that power. Ha! You were most certainly stronger than the cowardly waif we met upon Nightmare Night, who cowered before us even after personally witnessing our healing. Fluttershy wilted. Well, you were a lot smaller and cuter, and less Nightmare Moony back then. So you chose to judge upon appearances? Fluttercurl finally snapped from where she'd been watching silently. Hey, cut her some slack! I just spent the past 3 hours convincing her every shadow was some evil monster come to eat her pets or something. No shit she was terrified when Nightmare Moon herself showed up to shout at her. Your Highness. I see. Forgive me. My sister informs me I have somewhat of a royal temper. Something I am told thou canst appreciate after thy outburst at last year's gala, Luna said in a sweetly mocking tone. Fluttershy flinched back even farther. Fluttercurl growled. Do you have anything actually important to say, or are you just here to take potshots at my Fluttershy? Luna tilted her head. Her gaze was as cold as night. Dost thou thinketh me cruel, Fluttercruel? Thou must know I am quite capable. 'Tis likely among the reasons the elements betrayed me for mine sister. Then her eyes narrowed, and she became more, the mare in the moon at her full wrath. Princess Gaia, you took the form of one of my own and declared yourself a princess, very nearly becoming one with an aspect of reality. Neither I nor my sister hold any grudge against you for that. However, your actions trespass upon the territory of another Alicorn. You tried to take Pipsqueak, a child of the moon, as your own. And for that, and for the other mothers and fathers whose children you attempted to ensnare, I seek retribution. Fluttershy's eyes widened. Pipsqueak? I was wondering what all those animals were doing around him, but I didn't... Fluttercurl cut in. Hey, in case you forgot, I'm the one who screwed up, not her! A child should not be held accountable for their parents' misdoings, especially when said child manages the near impossible in a bid to rectify their mistake, Luna said, eyeing the scars littering Fluttercurl's body. Your punishment shall come in due time, child. But first... Her voice gained a weight not dissimilar to the royal Canterlot voice. Fluttershy, despite the darkness and corruption marring your heart, you held on to your virtues and retained your purpose, and were willing to adjust your vision according to your loved one's feedback. In some ways, this makes you a better mare than I. Remember that. There was nothing fundamentally wrong with the idea at the heart of the world you were trying to create. If a world of eternal paradise is so unrealistic and boring that those who watch would reject it, then it is your responsibility as its goddess to make it realistic and interesting. That is what it truly means to be a goddess. But the methods you were using would have tainted that perfect world forever, or brought it core at the center of reality, and your ill-thought-out fixes would have only piled upon themselves more and more as they brought more problems upon themselves, until reality itself collapsed under their weight, exactly the same as the world before yours. If you had only given ponies a choice to enter your dream world or eternal foalhood, as you did your knights, rather than forcing it upon them or cornering them, ponies would have trampled over each other to join you. You would have become equal in popularity to myself and my sister within a mortal's lifetime, and supplanted us as ruler of Equestria by popular voting too. And we would have gladly hoofed over the keys to the kingdom of our own free will, because your paradise would have evolved naturally into one more perfect than we could ever dream of. But instead, you just had to rush things. You took the quick and easy path, because you couldn't bear the emotional cost of waiting to think things through. And if you had only been honest with your followers, Fluttershy, their love and support for your sacrifice would have enabled you to defeat the shadows within yourself one by one, and the burden you took upon yourself would have shrunk into a mere marble in merely a few decades. Fluttercurl finally had enough. What the hell do you know? You two don't exactly have a good track record with utopias either. The word utopia has always been relative. 1,000 years ago, a world where griffins didn't hunt ponies for meat sounded like a utopia. Ponies considered anywhere absent of discord's games a utopia. If sparing our subjects hardship was truly so easy, do you not think we would have already done it? Our subjects have already paid the price for our inexperience. You may well have led Equestria into a new, brighter age, but because of your thoughtless, foolish actions, that world will now never come about. You let your power command you rather than commanding power, just as every other flawed mortal. That is my revenge unto you, Princess Gaia. The knowledge that your paradise was ruined from its outset by your own hooves. Fluttershy was silent for a long, long moment. Okay. I think I needed to hear that anyway. I'm sorry for trying to take Pip from you, Princess. I know how it feels to see someone you care for be threatened. But, can I ask... is there ever a way for me to make a perfect world? no matter what I did. Luna's voice softened. It could almost be mistaken for tenderness. Oh, sweet innocent pony. Dost thou not knoweth only my parents were ever perfect? The rest of us are destined to a lifetime of mistakes, and all we may do is learn from them. That is all I ask of thou now, to learn and to grow. His horn flared for a brief moment, and the world snapped back into motion. Fluttershy's friends resumed jumping in front of her and trying to separate her from the night goddess. There was much shouting and glaring. Princess Luna simply stood tall and regarded them evenly. Consider her sufficiently punished for her transgressions. Girls, please, Fluttershy stammered out. They fell silent. Don't be upset with her. I deserved this. But what about every pony in Ponyville and everywhere else? Rarity pleaded. They're going to be terrified of her. Are you so certain? The princess glared in Zeccora's direction. Everyone else turned too. Zecora blinked, looking a little put on the spot. Everything is not quite clear, but I believe Princess Gaia has little to fear. Could you please stop calling her that? Rehoboth begged. To your demand I would kneel, but I cannot change how I feel. Are we done here? Everyone's gazes snapped back to Fluttershy. She stared back at them with a gaze just a little sharper than the Fluttershy they were used to. Her movements just a bit more snappy. Because if we are, we should really get Shy home before something else comes along to make her start crying. Again. Princess Luna shook her head. Not so fast, Fluttercruel. Thy punishment is still yet to be served. Everyone looked between the two warily. Fluttercurl just tensed. Though thou art but a remnant of Discord's game, thou hast found a will and spirit of thy own, one strong enough to wield my mother's light. And yet, thou art still bound to thy mother's body, unable to take any action without her say-so. I believe the ponies of today would call this a recipe for disaster, if the day's events are anything to go by. She lifted a wing and held the broken horn on her magic. Only the mask of moonlight shielded its siren call. Thou art well familiar with this by now, yes? A mistake from my youth that has wrought more than enough suffering upon ponykind. I had endeavored to hide it away from mortal eyes, yet all my shields crumbled under the weight of a single determined false alicorn. I'm afraid there is only one way to truly halt its calling, by putting it to good use. Fluttercruel, my punishment unto you is this, to take responsibility for the keeping of the Elder Horn, and for your mother's healing, by requesting from the horn a body of your own. Fluttercruel's eyes widened. What, you're just giving me a body? That doesn't sound like a punishment! Luna's lips quirked. I am sure I know not what thou meanest. Now kneel before me, Fluttercruel, and accept thy task. Fluttercruel scrambled to lower Fluttershy's body into a bow. Luna unraveled the shield of moonlight around the horn and touched it to Fluttershy's head. For what purpose dost thou seeketh my power? The horn asked in her mind. Make me a body, please. Give me a way to protect her, to protect all of them, as myself. The sensation of a smile. As thou wishes. A reddish-pink light sparked at the tip of the horn. Luna released it from her hold, and it stayed, connected to Fluttershy, the light growing brighter and brighter. It spread around the horn in the shape of a pony's head, then behind it, becoming a neck, body, legs, wings. The crowd could just barely see a stream of tears trailing from Fluttershy's closed eyes. Then there was a final flash, and the new pony fell to the ground. Fluttershy staggered back a few steps, breathing hard. She focused on the pony on the ground. Fluttercruel? Are you okay? The pony groaned. I changed my mind. That was definitely a punishment. She slowly staggered to her hose and looked herself over. She looked much like her phantom had during the fight. Darker colors, choppy mane and tail, hoof and pearl cutie mark. But her pupils were slit now, her ears longer and tufted, and the feathers of her wings had been replaced with a leathery membrane of a bat. And she looked younger now, closer to a young teenager. She looked at Fluttershy with wide eyes. This is really me now? This is who I am? Fluttershy nodded hesitantly, eyes softening. Yes, Fluttercruel. That's you. I guess the changes may be a little scary, but... Fluttercruel jumped into the air and spun, laughing delightedly. I look freaking awesome! Ha ha! Look at me go, Fluttershy! I can do all the tricks I want, and you can't stop me! She then proceeded to loop straight into a tree. Despite herself, Rehoboth snickered. Luna chuckled. Be warned that thy new form may take some getting used to. Membranous wings are quite different from feathered, but I have every faith thou wilt figure it out in time. Fluttercruel shook herself off and trotted back to the group with a grin. Whatever, I still look awesome. Hey, Rares, you still need someone to model for ya? Rarity startled. I suppose your palettes may work for some of my bolder designs, yes. Epic. Rehoboth and Applejack watched Fluttercruel warily, not quite ready to forgive and forget. Pinkie Pie was just barely holding herself back from begging the princess for her own set of fluffy ears. Princess Luna coughed politely. Now that is all done, please allow thy princess to provide transportation. I believe my sister wishes to have a word with thee before thou retirest to slumber. There was a sensation like moonlight wrapping around them, and they were sucked away into the kind of transportation only an alicorn could provide. Sakura found herself just outside her hut. An angel appeared on top of the pile of furniture he was very thankful not to have to drag her back to the cottage, and the castle of the Pony Sisters lay barren once again. The group reappeared in Princess Celestia's throne room. It was remarkably empty. Twilight supposed the crisis had cleared most of the appointments for the day. Celestia turned from where she was talking to 4 Pegasus day guards who could barely contain their grins, and smiled at the heroes. Behind them were a pair of mildly bedraggled night guards. Celestia dismissed the cheerful guard and made her way over to the heroes. Trixie realized where exactly she was and shrunk down. She was not prepared for this. Celestia eyed the open cuts and broken bones littering the group, and quickly scrawled out a message via Dragon Flame. It barely took a minute for the entire castle medic team to burst through the doors, immediately sitting upon the battered ponies. One of them complimented Rarity's mid-battle stitch job and let her help with the shadow cuts. Fluttercurl just did her best to hide behind Fluttershy, whose stammering about not needing much help fell on deaf ears. "Princess! There's so much I need to—" Twilight began. "It can wait until you are all healed, Twilight," Celestia interrupted gently. Rarity realized she had unwittingly arrived in an audience with the princesses in utterly ruined makeup and begged one of the medics for a makeup kit. They dryly hoofed her a wet wipe instead. Applejack was feeling a bit naked without her hat. She wondered if Rarity could salvage the tattered mess of fabric, or if she'd finally have to get a new one. Pinky Diane stayed perfectly still the entire time, chattering happily with the doctors without coming across as obnoxious. When one of them asked her to hold her head still so they could stitch the cuts across her nose, she stopped talking without protest, and just imagined a stained glass Pinky playing in the windows. Madoka shook her head at this new, calmer Pinky, and went back to getting the last of the blood out of her feathers. Princess Luna walked over the 2 night guards who'd been set to babysitting. "Ye have both performed honorably and selfishly in thy duty to Equestria, and to thy princess. You may have the rest of this night and the following off. Now if thou wilt excuse me, thy princess is going to raise the moon and catch up on some much-needed sleep. Celestia, expect my report over breakfast tomorrow. I bid thee good night." She politely bowed to the element bearers and left the room trailed by her guards, just barely hiding the tension in her wings. 5 minutes later, Celestia's horn flared gold, and the sunlight faded from the room. For all the rest, this was hardly their first time in Canterlot, or their first meeting with a princess. But for Trixie it was both, and she was struggling not to panic. She wanted to run back to Huffington, buy the most expensive dress she could beg her family to help her purchase, spend hours on her maiden makeup, spend weeks practicing every possible line she could need to utter before the bringer of life and flame and one sole ruler of Equestria, and then return to Canterlot. Instead, she just sat very, very still and hoped the princess wouldn't notice her. The mare treating her broken ribs was happy to have a patient so well behaved. Soon enough, each medic reported to the princess that their patients were treated as best they could be. Celestia thanked them and dismissed them with a promise of a small bonus, then did the same to the scant few remaining guards and administrators in the room. Finally, the princess and the heroes were alone. She smiled at them warmly. "Now that is all done, hello, my faithful students. And to you as well, Princess Gaia and the other elements." "Oh, will you get off the floor? We just had it polished," Celestia chuckled lightly. Trixie's brain broke further. Fluttershy stammered before she could stop herself. "Please, just call me Fluttershy." "Far be it to ignore a request I have made to countless ponies of the years, Fluttershy." She eyed the 2 unfamiliar faces in the room. "Now, I believe there are some introductions to be made." Twilight seemed to realize that Trixie.exe would not be responding anytime soon, and intervened. "This is Trixie, Your Majesty. She's the pony I mentioned who was unable to shake off Discord's curse on her own. The curse has since been removed, and she's been staying with me the past 2 weeks to emotionally recover before she returns to her family." Celestia looked delighted. "Ah, so this is the great and powerful Trixie." Trixie's brain came back online. "One and only Trixie, Your Majesty." Trixie breathed deep. "The one and only Trixie, my liege. I revised my sage name after that." "Ah, is that so? Is there anything in particular that inspired you to do so?" "The great and powerful Trixie perished with a curse. It felt only fitting the name would die with her." Celestia didn't react with any of the confusion the others had shown. My, is that so, my little pony? I would love to hear the tale in full sometime." I'm afraid that is one tale the one and only Trixie won't be telling anytime soon." Trixie was talking to Princess Celestia. Princess Celestia, the sun goddess herself! Where the hell was all that confidence, damn it? Ah, truly a shame. Celestia accepted the answer with grace. "I am certain you will be in your element when next you perform your magic show." Trixie stiffened. Celestia could really tell just from one conversation? And it seems like Luna could too. Was it really that obvious? Yes, Your Majesty." Celestia considered asking the mare how she'd feel about performing for an upcoming event on short notice, but she feared the poor thing would pass out on the spot from shock. Perhaps she could convey the request through Twilight. Instead, she turned to the teenage bat filly, trying and failing to hide behind Fluttershy. "And you, my dear?" "I was not aware Fluttershy had any close relatives, let alone any sworn into my sister's service." Fluttershy gently nudged her child forward. Fluttercurl squeaked a little before her creator's sworn enemy. "It's, Fluttercurl, your highness. Hi." Celestia could easily sense the traces of Discord's magic and the filly's essence, of course, but far more overpowering was the light of an element bearer, and with it, her mother's blessing. If the filly or her friends were unwilling to offer details, she wasn't going to push. She was sure Luna would explain what she couldn't infer herself anyway. "It is lovely to meet you, my dear. Now, Twilight Sparkle, I am sure Luna will tell me in her own time, but I would like to hear from you and your friends what has transpired on this day. I swear I have no intention of punishing Fluttershy for her actions, in any way. This is merely to satiate my own curiosity, as it were." Twilight fought to keep the surprise and relief from her face. She still wasn't sure if she'd been willing to hide any details from the princess for Fluttershy's sake, and she was very glad she wouldn't have to find out today. "My dear Fluttershy, I'm sure you can fill in any details the others are unsure of," Celestia added kindly, seeing the uncertain look on the mare's face. "The more perspectives you hear from, the easier it is to get a full understanding of what really happened." The righteous fury of the moon, combined with the warm mercy of the sun, was just too much. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I'm sorry I made such a mess of everything." She looked close to another breakdown. Fluttercurl laid a comforting huff on her awkwardly, still unused to being able to touch her. The princess took a few slow steps towards Fluttershy and stretched out a wing to lift her head. Fluttershy trembled under her princess's touch. "There is nothing wrong with a little escape, my little pony. Just so long as you don't turn that escape into another prison." Fluttershy nodded hesitantly. "Hey, that's what Applejack put a hug on Pinky's mouth. The princess took a moment to request a light dinner from the kitchens and a set of overly opulent fold-out tables and chairs. The recount began, from everyone. Tears were shed, laughs were had, and Rainbow Dash only reenacted her flying stunts twice. Though most of the heroes were eager to get home to their families, the princess's desire to know the story in full took precedence. Trixie said surprisingly little, still processing the idea of the sun goddess being so normal. She didn't act like the Celestia from her fantasies at all. She was just a normal, rather large pony. Thankfully, the dinner was simple enough that Applejack didn't wind up starving out of fear of using the wrong dinner fork. Rady was amazed she even still had an appetite after that ordeal. Maybe it was just the relief of having Fluttershy back safe and sound. She kept shooting glances at Fluttercurl, who was keeping silent save for a few hushed conversations with her mother. She still wasn't sure what to think of her. "But there's one thing I still don't get," Rainbow Dash piped up, not without some subtle probing from a certain sun goddess. "Why did that other Fluttershy's element of kindness look different from regular Fluttershy's?" "It's Fluttercurl," the filly hissed. Then she glanced at Celestia worriedly. Celestia sighed. "I swear upon my parents, Fluttercurl, I mean you no harm. You are safer here than perhaps anywhere in Equestria. I care not for your origins. The Rainbow of Light has given you its blessing, and that is certainly good enough for me." Curl relaxed a little and gave the princess a short, decisive nod. "Now then, to answer your question, Rainbow Dash, didn't you ever wonder why the elements took the form of your key marks? You were not simply destined to be their barriers. Fate is rarely so linear. The elements take on a different form for every pony who bonds with them, for even the same element between two different ponies is always unique. The elements do not just balance each other, they harmonize with one another, each adding their own unique traits to create a stronger whole. The elements united strengthen one another, not restrain. There is more than one way to be kind, and more than one way to share the magic of friendship, and no one is worse than the other. This is why the exact nature of the power born from the elements is never identical, because you are each growing and changing with every use, and because none of you are identical, even those who share the same element. Fluttercurl may have been born from Fluttershy's soul, but she can use the element of kindness because she embodies it all on her own." Trixie inexplicably felt like leaving the room. Applejack remembered what she'd seen in The Truth, in that world where she'd stayed in Manhattan. Did Big Macintosh become an element of harmony in Golden Dream's world simply because she hadn't been in Ponyville herself? She had already told her brother he was as much a hero as the rest of them after that day. Maybe it was truer than she'd realized. Celestia flickered an eye to the conflicted show pony. Almost there. "When my sister and I split the elements between us to save the world from discord, we didn't cease to be the alicorns of the sun and moon. Miss Rarity certainly hasn't stopped being a dressmaker renowned even by the Canterlot elite, and Rainbow Dash has cemented her place in the history books for performing the impossible sonic rainboom twice. On Fluttershy, well, I'd wager your element has only enhanced your ability to communicate with animals, even allowing you to peacefully convince a raging adult dragon to vacate his home." Trixie's eyes just kept getting wider, and not just because of all the new things she was learning about her friends. And Pinkie Pie? Let's just say she has a uniqueness that shall never be matched. Pinkie Pie beamed. It at last hit Trixie that Celestia was addressing her directly. Oh, to the moon with this. She was a show pony, damn it. She wouldn't break under anyone's attention, Alicorn or not. She sat up straighter and met Celestia's gaze head on. Celestia's lips quirked at the sight. And Applejack's farm is known for its produce, not for the elements its proprietor carries. And Twilight Sparkle, of course, was my personal student long before magic chose her. In fact, given her antisocial attitude before, I would almost say she embodied its opposite. Twilight said nothing. She could tell what Celestia was doing, but couldn't bring herself to ask her to stop. And Fluttercurl, if I'm not mistaken, earning your elements made you more whole, not less. And I promise, you could not have awakened any part of the Rainbow of Light if you were simply a dark reflection of Fluttershy. The Bat-Filly glanced at her mother and nodded. So I'd say it would be rather silly for a pony to believe that embracing an element of harmony and joining with a whole would result in the death of the self. The Rainbow of Light would never allow such a thing, nor would they cease to be known for their own accomplishments. How could you even know all that? Trixie asked Princess Celestia. She wanted to hit herself a little, but stood firm. Most of the others were confused now. Celestia leaned in close, very nearly touching her horn to Trixie's, and Trixie felt small. The sheer power radiating from the alicorn made her horn ache. Celestia spoke barely above a whisper, her tone on that edge between stern and caring that seemed so alien to the isolated little pony. The more a pony's heart is ignored by its owner, the louder it calls out for someone to hear it. And the more it's buried, the more desperate those cries become, the more it hurts trying to dig it out. Everything in Trixie told her to run away, to flee as fast as she could. She could copy Twilight's teleporting, right? Surely. You don't have to be afraid, my little pony. I promise. Twilight watched this exchange and realized it was just like with Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy. Trixie had been hurting for a long time already. This was just bringing the pain to the surface. And it was time to pull the thorn out. She nuzzled the blue unicorn. Trixie, please, tell them. It's just hurting you to keep this bottled up inside. Trixie was sick of crying, sick of being scared, sick of hurting. She was sick of trying to hide this. She was sick of constantly playing catch-up. She was sick of having some power she'd never asked for. She was sick of being the one holding every pony else back. She was sick of all of it. Fluttercurl saw Trixie's trembling, and decided she was also sick of it. Oh my Celestia, will you just get on with that already, you attention whore? You already stole my spotlight. This is just getting old now. Cruel, Fluttershy admonished. But Trixie just stared, then laughed a little and shook her head. No, she's right. This has gone on long enough. Thank you, both of you. Fluttercurl hid her smile on her bowl of salad. It's what friends are for, Twilight smiled. They help one another. Yes, I'm starting to realize that. Trixie swallowed hard, laid a final crack in the wall, and let it crumble. Fellow elements of magic. There was a beat as every pony processed. Then, wait, what? Say what now? Oh! Well, it was fun while it lasted. Rarity theatrically fainted onto a couch that definitely hadn't been there before. Well, it's about time, complained Pinkie Pie. I mean, the foreshadowing was so obvious. There's no way I'm the only one who figured it out. You've got to be kidding me, groaned Rainbow Dash. Is this gonna be like freaking Dragon Orb Z where every pony gets an element? Nah, this is more like Pony Rangers RPM when the two other rangers show up and make the whole team stronger. No offense, Trix, but I have a bit of a hard time seeing how you could be the glue that binds us together. There's more than one way to lead a whole, Celestia reminded them gently. Just as there is more than one way to be a princess, and more than one way to be kind, whether good or bad. I do believe you've had a good taste of both by now. And you've certainly done a great deal of good with it. I believe this calls for a celebration. Pinkie Pie lit up at the mention of a party. The others wore myriad expressions of exhaustion. But not tonight, my little ponies. Tonight, I believe it is about time you return to your loved ones for some much-deserved rest. It will soon be time for my sister to begin the night court anyway. Please, as you arrive by Alicorn, allow me to escort you home by Alicorn. Before any pony could get an award in Edgewise, they were engulfed in solar fire, and one after the other transported to their doorsteps, or in Trixie's case, the library. While all were confused, the stars aligned for each of the 8 ponies to share the same thought at the same moment. They were exhausted, and perhaps it was best they went straight to bed. Got a chance of that. Mr. and Mrs. Cake, I'm so happy to see you! Pinkie Diane cried out, crossing the shop in 2 bounces to engulf her guardians in the hug. They hugged back. Sweetie Belle, Rarity cried, skipping the distance entirely and just pulling her little sister to her telekinetically. Scoots, you hear? Rainbow Dash! She scooted out of her bedroom. Yeah, Thunderlane gave me a ride home. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes, Squirt? They nuzzled. Did you beat the bad guy? Was there ever any doubt? Hey, sis. Great day today. Shame you missed it, Big Mac said with his usual verbosity. Trust me, Big Mac, I've had my own share of excitement for one day. Apple Bloom, are you here? Applejack! Tiny hoofsteps raced down the stairs and barreled right into Applejack. The fog kept trying to pull us in again, but someone came to show us the way out. Applejack, it was her. It was Ruby. She helped save us. I think she might have shown me the way out, too. You should have seen me, Twilight. I was decked out in this super cool armor and every pony was looking up to me. Okay, maybe they were just looking up because they were all super tiny, but still! I just know Rarity would have loved to see me in it. A real knight in shiny armor. Where were you guys today, anyway? I know where Princess Gaia was, but what about the rest of you? Woohoo! Hey, you got stuck with butterfly wings too, Birdie. Who? Says you. Twilight and Trixie looked at each other warily over Spike and Owlish's one-sided bickering. Bed? Bed. Fluttershy smiled at the sound of her animal's greeting cries, though Fluttercurl a few steps behind her winced at the noise. Angel ran up to greet his master at once before spotting Pearl behind her. He gave her an appraising look, then smiled and waved a paw at her too. After some amount of arguing, Angel and Fluttercurl went off to find blankets for the couch until they could figure out better sleeping arrangements. And Fluttershy, with a truly serene smile on her face, began to feed her animals.